Welcome to Sullivan Guitar Works, and today at OGW Studios we are taking a look at the Ibanez EDA905 5-string bass guitar. Now before we get into looking at the guitar, I must preface this video by saying this is actually my bass I play regularly in my band. There will be a small amount of bias in this video because I'm a huge fan of this guitar. I've been using it for a long time now and I've used it in pretty much every band I've played bass in. But mostly this video is there to show you an interesting guitar. I think this guitar is quite unique. I think this guitar has a very special feel to it. Everyone I've known who's played one has been a huge fan of it and had played more expensive basses, including myself. I played more expensive basses, more lauded as great basses, and always found this one to be more fun to play and feel better and sound amazing. So let's take a look at the Ibanez EDA905.
I first picked up my Ibanez EDA905 back in 2003. It was for a band I was joining and I only had a practiced bass. My guitarist in that band actually had the same bass, the EDA905 in a blue, and he showed me the bass, let me play around with the bass and see what I thought of it because he knew he had a friend that had one for sale. Now the EDA905 was released in 2002. And this made the bass relatively new and in good condition because I bought it quite early in 2003. The person selling it had basically bought the bass, really liked it from the look of it, but upon playing realized it just wasn't comfortable for him and he wanted something like a Fender. I believe it was a P bass he really wanted. He saw one and realized if he sold the Ibanez he could get himself the Fender. So my guitarist put us both in touch with each other and we negotiated a price, and I believe I paid £350 for it, which was a sight cheaper than how much he got it for brand new. And it also came with a hard case that I still have now and still sometimes use for storing other basses. And it came shipped from Glasgow, which is where he was to me in London. Upon taking delivery of the bass, I was super excited because having played my guitarist one, I knew what I was in for already, but I had no idea the longevity of this bass. I always assumed I'd probably get another one down the line, maybe find some other models. I was already playing an Ibanez 7-string, my RG7321 guitar, so I already knew I really liked Ibanez guitars, but I never realized how long I would have this bass and how much I would use it, and to be honest with you, depend upon the sound this bass creates to craft my style and sound of bass playing. So the Ibanez EDA905's body is made of luthite. Now remember that name and we will come back to that shortly after the rest of these specs. The bridge is a monorail 2 bridge featuring the Fishman piezo pickups. The hardware color is all charcoal. The neck pickup is the Ibanez Dynamics full range passive pickup. The active EQ system is the EQA PZ. The neck material, although the same color as the body, is a 3-piece maple neck. The neck type is known as an EDA5 neck. It has 24 frets. The fret types are medium. The fingerboard is rosewood and it has pearl dot inlays. I have seen this bass in a few different colors. There is a quite common red that it comes in, a blue, a black, and there is the model that I own, which is the pewter / gunmetal grey model. There is also a less common orange, borderline yellow. Now, as we mentioned earlier, talking about the specs and colors, luthite is a word that we brought up. Now, luthite is a synthetic material which was used to construct bodies and necks for electric guitars and basses, and it was believed it was a great material because it can make shapes that they couldn't easily carve out of wood. So now the more technical side of things, luthite is composed of an unsaturated compound polyurethane resin and an inorganic filler material which are combined with a hardener to create a material that has a specific gravity which is similar to that of wood. And in addition to it being easier to mold into shapes that would be hard to do from wood, it was also less expensive and more consistent than wood. Now, I've seen a very simple but interesting question posed online in bass forums, and that is, how good is luthite? To me, that's a really tricky question, being that I've owned this bass for, close to 20 years, 18 years now I've had this bass, and I have played this bass pretty much in every band I've been in, and I've been in a lot of bands over that 18 years. I am currently still using it now, and I must say that I have never found the luthite to be lacking any resonance or lacking any feel as opposed to wood basses I've played. I love the sound component of this bass, so I wouldn't trade it for anything because of the pickup systems and things like that, which we'll be going on to next. I think the luthite is not a case of how good is it. I think it's great for the manufacturing, but for the user at the end of it, I don't think it's a huge dramatic change from wood. I've played wood basses plenty and never really been like, oh wow, I missed wood, or oh wow, I missed my luthite bass. But an element I have found is that basses that are very much similar size to this, that are not luthite, have tended to be a little heavier, especially in the bottom end, than this bass. This bass balances, I mention it in the sound demo later on, that it balances really well, and when it is on my strap it just sits super comfortably. Is that really a effect of the luthite? I don't know for sure, but I think it's negligent to say that luthite doesn't play a part in that at all. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the pickup system in this bass is quite unique and really pivotal in the sound of this bass. The Magnetic Dynamics neck pickup is fantastically warm, really meaty sounding and really beefy, and I love the kind of round tone you can get out of that pickup just alone. Having that pickup alone is really, it's smooth sounding. It's very smooth. It gives you a nice balanced sort of sound. And the magnetic EQ circuit boosts both the bass and treble frequencies simultaneously with the single control knob. The piezo pickups in the monorail bridge offer you a treble cut or boost. Now, you can boost some of the bass as well by using the trim pots at the back, which are also used for boosting some of the volume as well on the pickups, but it is mostly for a treble boost or cut. And these pickups in the bridge offer you a massive amount of attack and a massive amount of clarity to your playing. Really articulates the punch of a pick and the impact of fingers, especially for slapping and for really fast sort of finger picking. You get a lot more dynamics and a lot more clarity. As far as competitors are concerned, any 5-string bass in the sort of 350 to 600 pound range would be a competitor, and there's way too many to really list. But you could look at things like Ibanez BTBs, or you know, some of the higher end Squires, lower end Fenders, 5-string specifically. But this bass, I think, stands alone because of that pickup system that we mentioned, and the luthite body is quite a unique selling point for the bass. And as we said, it's not necessarily a huge reason for its sound, but it is definitely a cool selling point when talking about the bass. So as far as availability goes, I've seen these basses available in different colors, mostly the grays available. I think it's probably the most common color I have seen since looking, and I've seen a few of the reds around, but the color doesn't really affect the price for me. I have seen a desperation sale for $250. A guy was getting rid of one because he was moving and he just wanted it gone. That's quite uncommon. They tend to float between the sort of 350 and 600, like I said, in the competitors section. So let's head over to our sound demo, where we will probably talk about some of the things we talked about already and actually be able to show you them up close on the bass. And we'll get to hear the pickup system that we spoke about in action. So here is my Ibanez EDA905. Now, as we went over in the specs section, the different available colours, this one is what some have referred to as the gunmetal grey, and I've heard referred to a few times as pewter as well. I don't really like the idea of gunmetal grey. Kind of conjures up the image of like phone cases and things that are, you know, quirky and cool looking for men, but I've heard it referred to that a few times, so I guess it's kind of the way I refer to it. Now, obviously, the looks of the guitar is a key thing. It looks eye-catching, it's very striking, it has some interesting contours and curves to it, very interesting horn on the bottom here, which lends for when you're sitting playing it and for holding it. And this one here, the longer one, is it kind of balances nicely. Something you don't really see on video, it's hard to catch, you might be able to see if I get a bit closer, is there's a bowl cut to the back of the bass that gives it kind of an interesting contour profile. It's unusual from both angles, as you can see there. We have a matched neck, which has the kind of darker fade into the middle. Let me get a bit closer. There is no decal on the headstock. It is a plain headstock, very similar to the RG. A little less pointy than the RG, a bit more rounded off, because it's finished, obviously. No wood showing on the headstock. You have an Ibanez Ergodyne under the magnetic pickup, in between the two pickups there.
And other than that, there's no real markers to show you that this is an Ibanez, other than if you are aware of this model and have seen it before. So looks, as we said, are important. It is a striking guitar, but something that's really key about this is comfort and playability. The neck, even though finished, and I'm not a huge fan of finished necks, I don't mind them on Les Pauls and Flying V's and Explorers and stuff. I find them pretty comfortable. The finish is good. This is a super slick, super comfortable neck. It just feels great. It's really consistent fretboard throughout. There's nothing that stands out as being off. It's the fretwork when I got it till now is perfect and super comfortable, and the guitar just balances really well. And when you're playing it with a strap, there's no neck dive at all. It just sits perfectly where you want it. It just seems to be a super well balanced guitar. Now, as mentioned in the specs section, the guitar is made from luthite. Obviously, it's not completely one piece because it is a bolt-on neck, and I point to that. Never had an issue with sustain. Bolt-on, no problem there. There's never been sort of like a want for a through or one-piece neck to give us a bit more ring buzz. This is absolutely fine. The luthite is interesting, as I have already shown on an original video, like an older video, that I have a switch guitar which is made of Vibracell. As far as my research has turned up, they're very similar. They're both made from resins, obviously, and the main reason apparently was to make something that they couldn't shape from one solid piece of wood. And that obviously, it's probably quite difficult to figure a top like this on a piece of wood. I imagine now they could probably do a lot more, but at the time they were making these, this was their option. I don't think it's something. The luthite body is unique, it's different, but you know, I've not noticed the difference in resonance in the bass, other than it's one of the loudest basses I've played just without it being plugged in. When I pluck the strings, I used to sit there practicing in my room sometimes when I first got this guitar, and I was learning songs for a band or learning covers. I used to just play without an amp, and I never felt myself needing to plug in because this guitar resonates so much, and it's just it sings really clearly. So I guess that's possibly a prospect of the luthite. Other than that, it's light. It's really not heavy at all, and on a strap, it's barely noticeable. Especially I use a comfort strap, which it takes strain off your shoulders. So this is just, I can wear this for ages, and it just doesn't bother me at all. Now, I have my action a little higher than some bass players like it. A few people have commented on how high it is. I've had people in bands that I've played with or met for other bands who've seen it and played it and been surprised at how high it is, but it's just comfortable. It just works for me. It's more a preference than it is the guitar, but this guitar holds that really well. And one of the reasons I can set the action quite well is the stability in the saddles, and the bridge is fantastic. And another interesting thing we'll go on to about the bridge is the pickup system. Something we mentioned in the specs is the piezos. I'm going to say piezo from now on because it's just what I'm used to saying. The piezo pickups are extremely interesting to your mix and your general sound, with the fact that they have a boost cut switch at the bottom here that gives you such a big attack. It gives you way more pick attack and way more finger click, and sort of slap and pop is just really noticeable when you blend up the treble cut. I like to have the treble all the way up and boosted. I like to have the EQ, which is a two-band EQ for the magnetic pickup. I like to have that all the way up, and I have both pickups at full volume just to give me the whole breadth of this guitar's ability and sound. Now, another interesting feature of this guitar is something on the back of the guitar. It is actually, if you look down, I'll come a bit closer so you can see, down here, the back of the saddles, these are trim pots. Now, these trim pots are for adjusting the sensitivity of the piezo pickups in the saddles. Another interesting thing in the back of the guitar again is over on this side here. We have one here and another there, and those are two more trim pots. Now, the bottom trim pot is for adjusting the volume of the piezo pickups in the saddle, and the second one is adjusting the volume of the EQ for the magnetic pickup. This is really interesting. It's a really interesting feature. I have had to toy around with this in the past, mostly the individual saddle sensitivities. I've had to turn up some of the lower strings just to get a bit more clarity and a bit more bite through when I was recording, and I turned down the sort of higher strings just to ease that kind of snappy higher notes cutting through when you're playing lower stuff. But otherwise, they you balance them out fine and they sound completely fine. But it is interesting to have the option to blend the volumes of the two pickups, which on just the basic centered setting with no boost or no cut, they sound really nice anyway blending. So it is cool to have that little extra option there. So we've talked about looks, comfort. Now we go over and check out the sounds. I'm probably going to reiterate a few of the points I've made already as I'm going through, because it is something you have to mention about the controls and the pickups. So let's see what sounds we can get out of the Ibanez EDA905. So as we explained in the specs section, the volume for the magnetic soap bar pickup and the volume for the saddle Fishman piezos, I'm going to say piezo because I'm just used to saying it, pickups are here. This is the magnetic and this is the piezo. Because of the interesting EQ system built into this bass, I will be experimenting with one on, one off at first, and then one on, one off with the separate EQs that are built into the bass. Now, as we said in the specs, this knob here is the magnetic EQ for this pickup, and this is the piezo treble boost cut for this pickups here. So we will mess around with just fingers at first and hear the notes. Nothing fancy, it's not an exhibition in my playing at all. This is just going to be the sound of this bass. So first we'll have the magnetic pickup all the way up and the EQ all the way down for it. So here we go. So they're very simple sound, nice round sound, quite basic sound, and it doesn't sound massively exciting when you play with just the pickup turned up without the EQ on. It's nice, it's not bad at all, there's no mud or anything, it's quite a clear guitar. No matter what setting you have it on, it is a very clear guitar, it voices really clearly. So now we will turn the tone up all the way, EQ all the way up, and we'll see how that sounds. So that's a nicer, rounder, thicker, meatier sound, which is expected from the magnetic pickup. That's the kind of characteristic of this pickup. Now the same test with the piezo pickup turned all the way up and the tone on that pickup, or the treble boost cut all the way down. It's a bigger, fuller sound. It's got a lot more treble, a lot more cut, a lot more action than the magnetic. So now we will try the treble boost cut all the way up. Now, it has, what's really cool about these knobs is that they have a mid sort of section where it clicks in. There's like a slight drop-in sort of spot. So it's kind of cool. You can find a nice middle ground between the two. I like personally it all the way up. So we're going to try it all the way up. So we've got the volume up and we've got the treble boost cut all the way up. It's just nice. Get a lot of attack from your hand. You hear a lot of the right hand. You can hear every little sort of articulation of your right hand on there, and slides and things are really transferred. Runs, really voiced. So I really like that. It just gives it a lot of clarity. So now we have both pickups at full volume, and now I'm going to put the EQ for the magnetic on half and the EQ for the piezos off. Simple, sort of, not so much. I kind of characterize it a little bit as a bass boost almost. Obviously that's because of the type of EQ it is. It's really nice, really warms it up. I've used a few amps with this where as soon as I plugged in on my normal settings, it was just a little too much bite, a little too much messing around, and considering the nature of the show I was playing, it was someone else's amp, I couldn't mess with their settings too much, and I was able actually to temper back some of that bite by sort of cutting the treble a little bit and warming up by leaving the EQ on the magnetic up. So that's a bonus. You can do something like that with just the guitar. I didn't even need to mess around with my pedals. I didn't even need to use my pedal, my DI box. It was fine to able to work it out with the guitar itself. It made life a little easier for me. Now we're going to try that same setting, which is both volumes up and the EQ for the magnetic all the way up and the treble boost cut all the way down. So I like that, that's nice, but I know what's coming once I crank the treble boost up. So let's just get on with that now and try it. So I'm going to put the treble boost into half and see how that sounds. So I really love that. I love the feel of that. It's a bit more throaty as well, and that attack is back in there. So now let's turn the treble boost cut all the way up. That's my settings that I would usually use on a day-to-day gig-to-gig basis. Difference there between the attack when I'm sort of playing a bit more shallow, then going deeper into the string. It transfers over that attack really, really well. I love, as I said earlier, the voicing, especially with that treble boost engaged. So now we'll try the same with the pick. I'm gonna just see where we are now. I'm not going to mess around too much with the different settings. I think you can hear the characteristics of the EQ and the characteristics of the treble boost and what it does, so you'll kind of get an idea from the earlier tests with just fingers. Now pick, with it everything boosted, everything cranked, is a whole different animal. It's so much more aggressive, it's so much more, voicing, it's so much more cut. It comes straight through when you're playing live. I was just practicing last night with my band and 2 amps going, and the drums and vocals. This just cuts through, and I can still hear myself nicely with earplugs in. So I get a lot of pleasure out of the fact that I can just pick myself out in a mix. I've got used to listening for myself anyway, which is a trick, but I can pick myself out and know that I'm kind of feeling what I'm playing. I'm in the pocket on a groove, basically. So let's give that a try with the pick, see how it sounds. You can probably hear the attack there. I have always noticed a massive difference between finger playing and pick playing, especially the pick I'm using now, which is the Prime Tone Dunlop 3mm, which is obviously a very heavy, very thick pick, but that attack you get and the comfort and the approach which the angle at which I play, I can come at it from a sort of slight and above angle, and then come at it from a sort of traditional angle. Coming up and down between the saddles and the base of the neck, you get a nice kind of tighter sound down here. A bit more, pop to it. And then coming back up for a looser, open sound. There's so much that can be achieved, and I credit a lot of that not just to the pick, but also to the guitar. It has a character. It's a very loud, very, I think the word is, it's a very powerful guitar, just because of those settings that you can utilize. You can just access so much between these two pickup setups. It's just a fun guitar to play. Of course, I'm completely biased, but that's that's my curse from having this guitar for so long and enjoying playing this guitar for so long. So that's enough of the sounds we can get from this bass guitar. I no doubt, you can tell from the video, I love this guitar. It's a very biased overview I'm giving here, but I hope you've seen some interesting things about this guitar and seen the things I found really appealing about it, and I hope the information we've provided may inspire you to go out and pick one up. They are around if you can find them. There we have the Ibanez EDA905. Please, if you like the video, hit the like button, hit shares, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can see what's coming down the pipeline from OGW Studios in the future. If you enjoyed the video and want to let us know, please leave a comment. If you found the bass interesting and have any questions, please leave us a comment. If you didn't like the video, leave us a comment. Either way, leave us a comment. And take it easy and take care.